All right, we have got to talk about this one. We're diving into what is hands down one of the most unbelievable personal crypto thefts in US history. Seriously, this is the kind of story you'd expect to see in a movie.
So let's just start with this number and let it sink in for a second. $230 million. And this wasn't some big corporate hack or a bank robbery. No, this was the entire crypto fortune of one single person, just gone.
And here's the kicker. The person at the very center of this whole thing was allegedly a 20-year-old from Singapore. Which, immediately makes you ask the question, how in the world did he possibly pull this off? We are definitely going to get to how they did it. But first, let's look at what happened right after the money was gone. Because honestly, the way they started spending this cash was so over the top, it basically left a trail of breadcrumbs for investigators to follow. Okay, so let's meet the two main players here. You've got Malone Lam, the 20-year-old from Singapore who, and I am not making this up, used the online alias Anne Hathaway. Then you have his alleged partner, Jeandiel Serrano, who went with the, slightly more on-brand name, Versace God. Now, to really get how they pull this off, you need to understand their main technique. This wasn't about some genius coder in a dark room breaking through firewalls. Nope, this was about hacking a person. Prosecutors called it sophisticated social engineering, but let's not get lost in the jargon. At the end of the day, this is a con job, a really, really high-tech one. It's not about finding a bug in the code. It's about finding a bug in human trust, in exploiting it to get the keys to the kingdom. And they didn't just pick a random person. Their target was very carefully chosen. He was a wealthy investor based in Washington, D.C., someone who'd gotten into crypto way back in the early days. And you know what that means? It means he was sitting on a massive, life-changing portfolio. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. How did this digital heist actually go down? Let's break down the anatomy of the whole operation. So the whole thing was this perfectly choreographed 4-step attack on the victim's psychology. Step 1, create panic. For a whole week, they bombarded him with fake security alerts, making it look like his accounts were under attack. Step 2, impersonate support. They called him up, pretending to be from Google, then Gemini, gaining his trust bit by bit. Step 3, gain full access. They tricked him into installing remote desktop software. Suddenly, they could see everything on his screen. And that leads to the final step. While one of them kept the victim totally distracted on the phone, the other used that remote access to find his private crypto keys and poof, 4,100 Bitcoin transferred out. Just like that. So, what do you do when you suddenly have almost $250 million? Well, first, you launder it. And second, you go on an absolutely unbelievable spending spree. I mean, they just went wild in LA and Miami. We're talking a fleet of 31 luxury cars. Think custom Lambos and Ferraris, millions of dollars in watches and jewelry, piles of designer dags, and they were hitting up nightclubs and dropping $500,000 in a single night. You want some perspective on just how insane their lifestyle was? Look at this number, $68,000. That wasn't for a new car. That wasn't a down payment. That was the monthly rent Lam was paying for just one of his homes on Miami's super exclusive Hibiscus Island. And this right here just shows you how fast they were moving to make these assets vanish. I mean, even after they were arrested, the feds still can't find most of their multi-million-dollar car collection. 22 of the 31 cars are just gone. But when you're living that loud, that extravagantly, it's just impossible to hide. The party couldn't last forever. All that flashy spending basically put a giant neon sign over their heads for federal agents. And look how fast it all unraveled. The theft happened on August 18th. Exactly 1 month later, to the day, the whole thing came crashing down. Serrano gets nabbed at the LA airport coming back from a trip to the Maldives. His girlfriend immediately calls Lam to tip him off, but it's too late. The FBI arrests him just a few hours later at his fancy waterfront rental in Miami. The party was officially over. Now, in the aftermath, Lam's lawyer put out this statement, basically trying to frame him as this young kid who got in way over his head and promising they're going to fight the charges hard. But the consequences he's facing are incredibly serious. We're talking federal charges, conspiracy to commit wire fraud and money laundering. And each of those charges, on its own, carries a potential sentence of up to 20 years in prison.
This whole story is just this crazy mix of digital money and old-fashioned human manipulation. But it really forces all of us to ask a much bigger question. As more and more of our wealth, our assets, our lives become just lines of code, where is the real vulnerability? It might not be in the software. It might be in us. And how do you patch a human?